Once again, welcome back to Jumpstart Your Immunity. Tonight's topic, Miracle of Air. Breathe in, breathe out. Does it really matter or make a difference what we breathe? What I breathe, will it really help my immune system? Find out answers with Dr. Jason Shives.
Well, hello, welcome to the next installment of JumpStart Immunity. And my name is Jason Shives. I'm a physician practicing emergency medicine in southern Mississippi. And tonight's topic is a breath of fresh air. And I've titled the topic, The Miracle of Air. As I've done preparations for this talk, I've just been impressed with just how amazing air is in every facet of our life. And I think we take it for granted, but I hope tonight we learn things together that will motivate us to really harness this power that we're given to improve our health. So I'm going to go to get started, and I'm going to share my screen because a lot of the presentation is going to be on slides. And give me 1 second here. Okay, so here we go. So we have the miracle of air. So first question is, how important is air? Think about that for a second before we just rush on to the answer. You know, when we have to eat, usually we have to think to eat. It's not something that happens automatically for most of us, but eating is important. And what about drinking? You have to think to drink. Sleep, usually you have to set a time to go to sleep. That's something we have to think about. But breathing air is one of the body's processes that happens automatically. You can try to hold your breath, but your body will overcome that involuntarily. In fact, if we did have to think to breathe, we wouldn't be able to make it through the night because most of us would not be able to get any sleep. Breathing is something that happens without us consciously thinking about it. That's how important it is. So I've divided my talk into three separate miracles, you could say, or just phenomenons that are just spectacular in the way they're presented. And miracle number one is the fact that air even exists, that we can breathe it. Some of you may recognize this. This is a picture that was sent out by Elon Musk, who was the CEO and developer of SpaceX. And he tweeted out this image a couple of years ago, and he named it Mars Base Alpha. And his goal was to have this become a reality on the surface of the planet of Mars in the 2030s. So we're in 2021 right now. So in less than 20 years from now, his goal was to have this be a reality. So in order to get to that point, he wanted to have a first uncrewed mission to Mars in the next 3 years, so by 2024. And then by 2027, he was trying to get his first human life to actually set foot on the surface of Mars. Huge, huge goals, huge goals. The race to Mars has also been taken up by different nations. The United States, China, even the UAE have pushed their nations to try to get some type of a presence on the surface of Mars. This is no fantasy, it's becoming a reality. Mars is one of our closest planetary neighbors, and we realize that as we study more about Mars, we see a lot of the similarities, but one of the biggest differences is the fact that, just like our topic is tonight, we have a difference in our atmospheres, which is made up of air. So air, as a definition, is the invisible gaseous substance that surrounds the Earth, or our atmosphere. If you compare the two planets, if you look at Earth versus Mars, you find that there's quite a vast difference. Our atmosphere is made up of nitrogen, oxygen, and those two almost make up 100% of the gases in our atmosphere. But then a very, very small percent, both of these two are less than 1% of carbon dioxide and argon. You compare that to Mars, it's almost the complete opposite. Carbon dioxide, which is poisonous to us, makes up about 96% of the atmosphere. Oxygen, which is necessary for life, or it's how our body regenerates itself. It's how our cells feed off of oxygen for energy. It only makes up 0.1%, and you can see it's a vast difference in the two. If you compare that to our neighbor on the opposite side, closer to the sun, Venus, you find that both planets have very similar concentrations of both carbon dioxide and nitrogen, and they're very similar in their trace amounts of oxygen. And as you can tell, it seems as if those compositions that are provided there equal to no life, as opposed to Earth, which is just abounding in life. And so air, we can see just from our neighbors, the composition of the air is important to whether or not you'll find life on that planet. There's this thing called the thin blue envelope. And so if we look at our planet, we find that from the center of the Earth to the surface, it's approximately a radius of 4,000 miles. The atmosphere of Earth extends about 500 miles from the surface into space. And atmospheric air, which is breathable air that has oxygen, the gases that are necessary for life, only makes up about the first 18 miles of that 500 miles of the atmosphere. If you look at the comparison from that radius to the Earth's atmosphere, it's approximately only 0.5% of the Earth's radius is a livable aspect. So only less than 1% of the radius of the Earth is hospitable to life. And if you want to get even more specific, the concentration of air that's necessary, the amount of oxygen and the pressure needed to be able to provide life-sustaining air is only within the first 3 miles of the surface. And so if you think about that, it's approximately 15 to 16,000 feet. And that only makes up the first only makes up about 0.075%, so less than 0.1% of the Earth's radius is a place where life can be sustained. Think about it this way: have you ever, traveled to a place like Denver, which is known as the Mile High City, approximately 5,000 feet in elevation? Many people that aren't used to it get altitude sickness. They get headaches, they get nauseated, they feel very tired. And it's because the air concentration, the oxygen concentration of the air is less. And just imagine what it would be like at 3 times that altitude, at 15 to 16,000 feet. I am a pilot, and when I fly my plane and the cabin pressures, when you get to an altitude of over 12,000 feet, the FAA requires you to wear oxygen if you're going to be there for greater than 30 minutes. And the reason is because once your oxygen level gets to a certain point, usually below 90% saturation, you start to get fatigued, you start to make decisions that can be dangerous. It's kind of like being intoxicated, where you don't realize you're making mistakes, but you are, and that can be deadly if you're a pilot. So we see that if you look at the percentage of the Earth that actually is habitable for life, it's a very small percent. Life on Earth is a miracle. It's a thin blue envelope. And I want to it's a little bit of an aside, but I think it's important for us to look at before we get deeper into this talk, is that there's this concept called cosmic fine tuning. And if you think of the planet that we live in that has this abundance of air that provides life, really there's only certain galaxies. There's 3 main galaxies. If you look at all the galaxies in the universe, there's what's called an elliptical galaxy, then there's irregular galaxies, and then spiral galaxies. And scientists postulate that only one of those 3 allows for the existence of life, and those are the spiral galaxies. Within the spiral galaxy, if you look at our galaxy is called the Milky Way. And depending on where this planet or your solar system is within the galaxy also is important towards whether life exists or not. If your planet, or if your solar system of planets is too close to the center of the galaxy, you'd be really close to that black hole, and so much radiation would prevent life from occurring. If you're too far away, if you're on the periphery of the galaxy, you may not have enough heavy elements to create planets themselves. And so we find that having the right position in the galaxy is important as well. Having the right type of a star. You could have these giants, these supernovas that are very erratic and that they could be detrimental to life, versus a star that is stable, kind of like our star in our galaxy, or sorry, in our solar system. And having the right type of star is necessary to provide that constant amount of heat that's not too dangerous, and also gives off enough to provide for life. The planet itself needs to have a consistent orbit around the star, and so there's some planets that may have more of an elliptical type of a pattern as it orbits around its star. Ours is a consistent circle, and that allows us to be able to not have large variations of temperature, but that there's a consistent distance between our Earth and the sun, which provides for life. The moon provides a gravitational tilt that helps to support the seasons and provides protection from extremes in weather. And then the surrounding planets provide protection as well. So big planets like the planets next to us, Mars and Venus, provide objects to where things like meteors can run into and prevent from hitting our planet. And then also Jupiter, which is a massive planet nearby, also takes a lot of things like comets, direct hits that would provide, that would be deadly to our planet. So I'd like to take this opportunity. Actually, before we do this, I wanted to mention one more thing. Scientists postulate if the Earth was only 1% closer to the sun, that it would be so hot that all the oceans would evaporate, they would boil and evaporate, and we would not have life-sustaining liquid. And if for some reason the Earth was only 2%, so remember the Earth, the distance from the Earth to the sun is approximately 90 million miles. If it was just only 2% further from the sun, that all the water would be frozen, and that we would not have life-giving water, let alone the other things. And so that's that concept of fine-tuning, that cosmic fine-tuning. It's important to know that as you think, the things we take for granted is, we really are blessed to have the planet that we have and to have the atmosphere that we have. It's hard to think of these things as just happenstances, just accidents, but it's almost as if that God designed it specifically so that as we looked and studied these things, we would just be amazed. Wow, there must be someone out there that designed this and is making this thing happen. So tonight's topic is about breathing, and so I thought that throughout the night this presentation that we'd actually take some time to breathe. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of an exercise in breathing, and we'll do this a few times during our presentation. So we're going to take some breaths, and so just to do a little education first. And so I'm standing up. I don't know what you guys are doing, if you're sitting or not. Can't tell through Zoom, but anyways, if you can stand up, do it. If not, you can sit down. But I want to have you do a few things. We're going to have you sit straight up or stand straight up. Good posture. Open up your airway. And I want you to put your hands on your sides. And so I'm going to take my hands and just put them on the sides of your ribs here. And I want you to hold them there. And as you breathe, I want you to breathe in for 5 seconds. And really focus as you're breathing in to expand your chest and push your ribs to the side. Okay, so breathe in for 5 seconds. Then I want you to, let's try that. Breathe in for 5 seconds. Hold it for 5 seconds. And breathe out for 7 seconds. And so I want your exhale to be longer than your inhale and your hold. Okay, so when we do that, we'll do that 3 times together. And then the next time we do this, I won't have to explain it to you. You'll know exactly what to do. Okay, so sit up straight, hands on your chest, on the sides. You're going to try to make your ribs go out to the side, not to the front. You want to expand your ribs to the side. We're going to leave all our stress to the side. We're not going to think about it. We're just going to focus on the breathing. Okay, nice. Inhale for 5. So inhale for 5. Hold it for 5. Exhale for 7. Now, while you're watching this, I'm going to create a little metronome. We have 2 more sessions, two more cycles here. Okay, and here we go. Inhale for 5, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, breathe normally. And we'll provide a little landscape. We'll do one more. And I want you to just, now while we're doing this, just imagine you're at this beautiful beach somewhere in the Pacific. The sun is just rising. And we're going to do one more breathing exercise together. And I just want you to imagine, you know, if you had a stressful day today, one of the best things about air is that you can breathe intentionally. And it's one of the greatest stress relievers. Sometimes more powerful than even some of the medicines I prescribe for people with anxiety. Just taking the time to relax, put your phone down, put the technology away, don't think about all the stresses. And we're going to do one more cycle here. Ready? I'll do it with you. Ready? Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right, let's go on to our next miracle. The miracle number 2 regarding air is the fact that we can use air. You know, we talked about other planets. Those other planets are not, they don't have atmospheres, they don't have air that we can use for life. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so we talked about food earlier at the beginning, but we're going to talk about, you know, how long can you live without these things? And so it's studied that a typical human can live approximately 8 to 12 weeks without food. I think there's documentation of somebody that went 25 weeks. And so like about a half a year without eating, and it didn't do any damage. Water, usually about 3 to 5 days before it does permanent damage. One person went 18 days, and that's the record. Sleep, 8 to 10 days without sleep is usually what the body is able to tolerate. 11 days, a teenager or a 17-year-old was able to go 11 days without sleeping and not causing permanent brain damage. And then air, look at air. So we went from weeks to days to seconds. So air, try holding your breath. You know, how long can you hold your breath? And I do this with my kids sometimes. We try to see how long. And the longest I've ever been able to go, I probably could have gone longer, but the longest I've ever been able to go without really hurting myself is about a minute. But there's some people that can do it a little bit longer. There was a deep diver or one of those divers that dives deep without any type of assistance like scuba gear or anything like that. And Guinness World Book of Records has this guy's name is Alex Vendrell from Barcelona, Spain. He was able to go 24 minutes without breathing. And we think of that, wow, 24 minutes, that's amazing. You know, he was able to go 24 minutes, but look at it in the inverse. We can only go 24 minutes. I can't go 24 minutes. You probably couldn't either. You know, we can only go about 3 to 5 minutes at the most before there's brain damage. That just shows you how important. Most of us can go 3 to 5 minutes without food or drinking, but without air is so important. And it's a miracle that we have it to be able to utilize. So just a quick little science experiment here, or science exercise. I just wanted to show what air does inside of our bodies that makes it so important. So when we take a deep breath in, we inhale oxygen-rich air into our lungs. And so you see here, I don't know if you see here the air travels down the trachea into the lungs and separates into both lungs, and down at the level of the alveolar sacs, it gets thin enough to where the oxygen in the air can actually permeate the membrane through these endothelial cells and go into the bloodstream. Once in the bloodstream, red blood cells carry oxygen through hemoglobin, and the oxygen is taken from the blood into the cells and absorbed. And in these cells is where ATP is made, energy is made, and all the processes that are essential to life in the body, they run off of oxygen. And so if there is no oxygen, eventually, slowly, the cell ceases to work and ceases to function and eventually will die. Well, the blood also takes out the byproduct of these reactions that occur, which is carbon dioxide, CO2, gets transferred back into the blood, back into the alveolar sacs, through the bronchioles to the bronchi, up through the trachea, and it's exhaled into the atmosphere. What's cool is that the world itself, the air, as animals breathe in oxygen-rich air and exhale carbon dioxide-rich air, there are other living things in this world that feed off of what we are, basically our exhaust, and those are plants and trees and shrubs. And just in order for photosynthesis, the process through which plants create energy, in order for that to occur, it needs carbon dioxide coupled with the sun and water. And its byproduct, wouldn't you know, is oxygen. And so there's this cycle of life that occurs. And that in itself is just a miracle. So talking about air again. So we realize and see that Earth's air is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and then 1% other. From the first breath, when the baby, comes out of its mom's womb and exits its first breath, life abounds with that first cry. You look at Mars and go back to that original illustration we had at the beginning of our presentation. The different composition, it is stated that, it's never been done, but scientists believe that if we were to set foot on Mars and take a breath, we would die instantly. The lack of oxygen, plus given the fact that not only does our atmosphere create or provide this awesome composition of air that's needed for life, but there's also pressure levels that are needed as well. The pressures, because of gravitational forces and the weight of the atmosphere itself on our planet, provides the necessary pressures to allow the human functions to occur. But if we were to take a human being and place him on the surface of Mars, the pressures are less than 1/10 of the amount of force on the surface. In fact, the pressures are so small at the surface of Mars that before you would even be able to get to the point where you would suffocate from the lack of oxygen, you would actually, your blood would boil because of the lack of pressure keeping it in a liquid form. It would evaporate into a gas. And so Mars, I almost giggle at times thinking about all the money that's putting forth to try to get to Mars, so that way we can find a place to go if Earth happens to be destroyed or happens to become an uninhabitable place for life. And I'm just like, it almost seems like no matter how bad Earth gets, it's always going to be better than our next door neighbors. It would take a lot of effort to make life possible on one of our two neighbors. Okay, all right, let's do one more breathing break here, or another breathing break. So we're going to go straight to the picture here, and I'm going to go and count it up for you. We're going to do 3 cycles. Remember, deep breathing. You had a stressful day at work. We're going to take that breath in, and hopefully you have an opportunity. Maybe you're in a room or you have some ventilation. If you can get some fresh air into your room, crack a window, maybe a door while you're watching this, and we're going to do 3 cycles here, and I'll count it through. Okay, here we go. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, go for a big breath here. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more time. Here we go. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I hope you're getting that mental picture. You're breathing in that oxygen-rich air. You're holding it in. You're allowing that oxygen just to be able to just dissipate into those alveolar sacs, and then you're exhaling all that CO2 rich air and getting it out, and just providing an opportunity for your body to get rid of the waste and bring in life renewing air. A nice picture here of an F5. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but one of our F5 hikers just getting some fresh air. Miracle number 3, the fact that we haven't destroyed it yet. And so air is an amazing resource that we have on planet Earth, and we must do what we can to prevent it from being consumed, destroyed, and take care of it so that the quality of the air that we breathe is excellent. So air quality, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. So NOAA and the EPA, 2 government-based organizations that have been trying and measuring the air quality over the last several years. So NOAA is the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and the EPA is the Environmental Protection Agency. They've been issuing daily air quality forecasts for the last, I'd say for the last 15 to 20 years. In fact, if you have one of these phones, so this is an iPhone, but if you go to the weather app, you can actually start, I started noticing this within the last several months, they actually will give you air reports of the quality of the air. They'll give you a number, and they'll give you a little a color. The green is good, and yellows, got to be careful if you have certain type of lung conditions like asthma. But as you go through, it'll actually give you recommendations of whether or not it's good to go outside and exercise. Maybe you shouldn't exercise this day, or it would be harmful for you to exercise. So NOAA and EPA. So we find that the quality of the air, especially in the United States, has been steadily improving over the last 40 to 50 years, ever since the Clean Air Act of 1970 was passed. We started to realize that some of the things that we were doing, especially from an industrial standpoint, was making a huge difference in our air and air quality. And as we started to monitor those things, we started to realize, we can make a difference in the quality of air we breathe, because it's important to us. But still, many areas are exposed to unhealthy levels of air. And so what can we do to avoid being exposed to those areas? It is calculated that approximately 60,000 premature deaths in the United States occur because of poor air quality. Air pollution-related illnesses cost $150 billion a year. So things such as asthma attacks that wouldn't occur if you had been breathing clean air, irritations to the throat, the nose, the eyes, and heart attacks. So these premature deaths may not have occurred if there was good quality air present. And so some of the most common air pollutants that we have to wrestle with on a daily basis, one is ground level ozone. So ozone is one of those things that's, it's a blessing, but it also can be a curse depending on where it's at. Obviously, ozone provides a barrier to cosmic radiation coming in from our solar system outside of our atmosphere, but also can be very deadly if we inhale it at the level of the ground. So carbon monoxide, VOCs, dust, soot, lead, or PB for lead, and then sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides as well. Those are the common pollutants that are irritant to our lungs and can be harmful as far as air pollution. So here's a map of the United States, and I just took this picture yesterday and just screenshotted. Like, these are the places where they were recommended to, snapshot in time. It's not always this way. There's sometimes, like I live up in Pennsylvania, and there's some times where the air quality is not so great, and so I'll check the air app, and I'll be like, you know what, I'm not going to go exercise intensely. I may go for a walk, but depending on how bad the air is, like right now, like near on this map, somewhere in Fresno, probably be recommended not to exercise. And depending on whether there's a forest fire going on or if there's a significant amount of smog. I did my medical school training in Southern California, and there were many days, especially in the summer, where the air quality was very, very poor and wasn't recommended to exercise. But then I remember the first year I attended medical school was in Southern California, and I remember it was in the summer, and I was just thinking, man, it was so hot. And it wasn't until about 4 or 5 months later, like right before Christmas, that I saw that there were actually mountains nearby, and the winds had blown all of the pollutants out, and I just got, maybe it was because I was so focused on the medical school studies that I didn't see the mountains, but there was a stark contrast. And at that time, I feel like a lot of it was, soot and dust and things like that were in the air, had not cleared out. And those can be harmful. Those things get into our lungs. They can be very detrimental to our health. If you go to the NASA website, and they've been one of the foremost in studying the air quality of the planet. There is back in it's been about 15, 20 years now. NASA started this project 2003, 2004 with the Aura satellite. And this satellite has been measuring these different pollutants and the air quality and giving feedback to the Earth to be able to tell us, what the quality of the air is. And so there's a cool little quiz you can take if you go to NASA's website. It gives you information about the quality of the air we breathe and talks about different pollutants and things you can do to improve the air. I'm going to just go over a few of those because I feel like it really provides some excellent information. So here is so question number one that they give is, what are some of the forms of pollution? And so smoke, haze, smog, dust, and that's a pretty easy one. All of the above. These pollutants, we talked about the smoke and soot and carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide. These mostly are pollutants resulting from the burning of biological material or biomass or from fossil fuels. And so, finding ways to curb that is so important. Another question that was on the NASA website that I thought was interesting was if dust and soot somehow, let's say there's like a dust storm, which is common in places like Texas and Arizona and places where there's deserts in our country. A dust storm puts a lot of dirt and debris and soot into the air. How long does it take for it to clear from the air to where the quality is good again? 1 day, 10 days, or 20 days, or a month? And usually the answer is 10 days. Usually it takes about 10 days for it to clear through. We talked about this, over the last 20 years, has the air quality gotten better or worse in this country? And it looks like it's gotten better. And so there are things that we can do as humans, as stewards of this planet, to make a difference. And so we're not just, kind of just floating downstream and, there's nothing we can do. There are actual things we can do to improve the quality of air, not only in our country, but our world, because air does not stop at the border. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of us to try to do our best to keep the air clean, because it also provides clean quality air for our neighbors to the north and south, in our country, that's Canada and Mexico, and then also across the seas. So if you look back, and this is on NASA's website, if they basically stated that for the first several thousand years of recorded history, there has been about a 10% rise in the levels of carbon dioxide that were measured. And that's over multiple thousands of years. But since the Industrial Revolution from 1751 to the present, there's been a 46% rise in CO2 levels in the atmosphere. And so we need to really watch what's going on. Usually the oceans and then the soil, they absorb the carbon that is in excess, but once it gets to a place where those are saturated, the atmosphere actually has to take it up. And that can cause a lot of detriment. It can cause irritable air, the air we breathe. It can change temperatures, and things like climate change become a factor. And so we need to be very conscientious about how we take care of the air and what we put into the atmosphere. All right, breathing break number 3. Okay, so we're gonna go to one of my favorite places. This is actually the province or the islands of El Nido, which is in Palawan in the Philippines. I'm half Filipino, and got a chance to visit this beautiful island in the Philippines. And one of the cool things about air is that it tends to be in a lot of beautiful places. And so you're not only getting excellent breathing and oxygen and all that stuff, but the vibrant colors of being outside, the sunshine, all these things were created specifically by God to be able to improve our health. And when we feel good, and I've never seen anybody outside not smiling. When you feel good, your immune system is boosted. It's truly said, wise man once said, a merry heart is as good as medicine. And so do things in your life that make you smile and are enjoyable. Well, anyways, let's do our breathing exercise. Okay, so you have just taken a first-class air trip to the island of Palawan to El Nido, and you're sitting in an ocean kayak. And I want you to put your paddle down, and we're going to breathe 3 cycles deep breathing. I want you to think about breathing in that fresh air off the ocean, okay? And I'm going to count for you. Ready? Let's do our inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Nice and tall. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. One more. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. I think I might have shorted you some seconds on the exhale and the other two, so sorry about that. But anyways, hope you feel calm and relaxed. Get that good air in, and your brain is focused. Your immune system is strong. Let's go on to the last part of our presentation. Miracle number 3 is the fact that air can heal. Certain forms of pollutants can destroy, but air is a healing substance in our world. Clean air. It helps it increase energy levels, more vibrant. You get that air inside of you. It helps to carry away toxins from the body. Clean air clears the mind. It provides deep and calming senses to the body. Breathing helps to relax the soul. It prevents exacerbations of lung and heart diseases. And one of the best ways, how do I get this clean air? Well, one of the best ways to breathe deeply without even thinking about it is to exercise. And I wanted to put a little plug in to one of my favorite organizations, the F5 Challenge. And F5 is it's actually an international organization of faith-based participants that come from all over the world to do these adventure activities together. You got examples of people climbing mountains, and some of these mountains have more air than others. As you can see, one of our climbers got to the top of North America there. And but from each picture, what I loved about all these pictures is that everyone's having a good time. They're happy. No one had to pay them to smile for these pictures. Something about being outside in nature, getting outdoors, being with a community of people that all want to have a good time and just take in that oxygen and breathing. I've never had a problem taking in a deep breath when I'm exercising. And so that's a great way to make sure you're getting daily deep breathing to get all that extra dead air in the bottom of your lungs. When we breathe at a just regular breathing, when we're not exerting ourselves, we only use approximately like 30% of the actual lung capacity. You really want to do exercise and activities that causes you to blow out all that extra dead air, so that way you're constantly getting fresh air into your lungs, into your body. But if you get a chance, we'd like to invite you to check out F5 Challenge, f5challenge.org. We're also on Facebook as the F5 Challenge members. We're always trying to do things that help to improve the quality of your life through the 5 Fs. And if you want to know what those 5 Fs are, check out the website. So the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or also known as NASA, they were trying to find ways to improve the quality of air, not just outdoors, but indoors. So NASA is all about clean air. And you can imagine, back in the 80s, they were doing space shuttle missions and building the International Space Station and things like that. And so they were trying to find ways. We have these astronauts that are going to be confined spaces and they're not getting that fresh air. What are some things we can do to make sure that the air quality within a confined space? Because there's different things in your homes. I mean, plastics and things that emit different chemicals into the air. Without fresh air being ventilated into the house, those things can build up and can cause damage. So NASA knew this, and they came up with a study and found out that there are certain plants, more than other plants, that are just super producers of oxygen and also super accumulators of pollutants and carbon dioxide. And so I want to share with you just a few. You can go on the internet and just type in NASA household plant studies, but I wanted to share just a couple with you here. So the first one here is one called the areca palm. And I'm just going to read a little bit about this areca palm to you. It's considered to be the best of the house plants for clean air. So if you can only have one house plant of all the house plants, someone said, listen, you can have one house plant. This is the one you want in your house. You've probably seen it in offices and church vestibules. In addition to its air purification abilities, it helps to maintain indoor humidity levels, which is important. It likes direct sunlight, but leaves can scorch it. So you have to be sure that it's not getting too much sun during the hottest part of the day. The Areca palm can do with a little dryness, but don't let it dry out completely. It's non-toxic to people and pets. And so if you have little kids, if they eat it, they're not going to die. And this plant can be quite large if placed in a large growing container. So Areca palm. If you're wanting to improve the quality of air in your house, get one of these. Aloe vera. So we don't usually think of aloe vera as an air or oxygen producing, mega plant, but it really is. We know that aloe vera helps with things like sunburns and cuts and things like that. It also can help with aiding in digestion. But the aloe vera plant, what's cool about it is not that it's only an oxygen producer. It actually produces most of its oxygen at night. It's actually recommended if you have an aloe vera plant to put it in your sleeping quarters, and it produces oxygen throughout the night. And you're getting, fresh, clean oxygen while you sleep at night. But it's easy to maintain. You don't have to water it but once a week, and it doesn't take that much sunlight. And it's kind of known as one of the plants that's hard to kill. So if you're the kind of person, so Areca palm is one if you had one plant to choose. But if you're not good at maintaining things, and kind of like me, where things kind of get neglected at times, the aloe vera plant is very forgiving. So that's a great plant. Next plant is the snake plant. And this is a great plant to put in your bathroom because it loves moisture and humidity. And so put it close to the bathroom and a door to your master bedroom, going into your bathroom. It absorbs a lot of that moisture. Excessive moisture in the house can be bad as far as air quality, things like mold and dampness. Not the greatest, and obviously can exacerbate other lung issues. And so you want to make sure that you're doing things. In my house, we keep an air dehumidifier because we live in a fairly humid place, and so keeping the air quality clean is as important, not only for outside but inside. And a lot of these plants are helpful if you have the ability. If you live in a place where the air quality is always good outside, find time to just several times a day open the window, let fresh breeze blow through. That helps because you're basically taking the power of millions of plants from outside and the oxygen producing benefits of those plants and bring them inside. But if you live in a place, a lot of places like, countries like India and cities where there's not a lot of, greenery outside, having this in your house is a great way to improve the oxygen quality. I want to introduce you to a book that I really enjoy. There was a health reformer. She lived in the mid to late 1800s and into the early 1900s, and she was known by millions of people as someone that was ahead of her time when it came to health and healthy living. I want to make sure I'm not blocking this video here or this book. Okay, so this book is called Counsels on Health, and so the author's name is Ellen White. And this book was published in 1923. And a lot of the things that she mentioned back, almost 100 years ago or even more, were very new and kind of pioneering in her time. Now I'm going to put my picture down here that way I don't block the book cover. I'm going to cover the picture of the lady drinking because we're not talking about water today. We're talking about breathing fresh air. So you can get more information about it later. So she won't mind me being right there. Anyways, so she had a lot to say about air. And she was actually one of the first health educators, reformers to be very anti-tobacco and smoking. And back before, this is before even a lot of the physicians and doctors were concerned about it causing lung cancer. Back when even you'd see doctors smoking. She had information that was vital then, and I think continues to be vital today. So I'm going to share with you a few things that she said about air. So she is talking about stagnant air. So one of the best things you can do, we talked about this a few times, to really improve the air quality that you breathe in, because we spend so much time indoors, is to open a window. Get the stagnant air out. Just like a stagnant pond can harbor disease, a stagnant body of air can cause or can harbor disease, especially if someone's sick. Right now we're going through this pandemic with the coronavirus, and the virus travels through the air. And so one of the best ways you can help to prevent it from accumulating in your lungs is to make sure it doesn't accumulate in your house. So ventilate your home, get outside. It's hard for these things to accumulate to a critical mass where it actually can do damage to your lungs and to your immune system if you're adequately venting your home with fresh air. Light helps to clean the air in your home as well. So open up the shades, open up the blinds, let the light shine in. And light and air purifies room. Avoid mold and damp air in your house. Let pure air in even during the summer and winter. She was she lived in New England, and there was even times she says, air is so important that you should let the air in even during the winter when it's cold outside. Just put some more clothes on, she'd say. And during the summer, if you live like in Florida, man, it's really hot, or in California where it gets over 100 degrees, the air is so important, that it, obviously good quality air, make sure it's ventilating your house several times a day. For those of you that I was taught, make your bed in the morning, and I still like to make my bed, but she was a big proponent that, you sleep, 7 to 9 hours at night, and you're breathing, your body is exhausting itself into these linens. Air those things out when you wake up in the morning. Open the window, shake out your sheets, get get some fresh air. Air is a cleansing agent and helps to clean those bed linens, because we're not washing those things every night after we sleep. So you want to make sure you keep those clean, because they're in contact with our skin almost as long as our clothes are. Deep breathing soothes nerves. We talked about that. We've done that several times, but deep breathing soothes our nerves, improves appetite, and deepens sleep quality. And then let fresh air in at night. If cold, add clothing. And so when we're sleeping at night, it's really important to make sure that we're getting good air while we're breathing, our body's recovering and healing at night. So some more tips as we close here to improve your air quality. Go outside. If you're worried about the quality of air inside your house, get outside. There are studies that show, and there's as the populations move more towards the cities, the air quality might not be that great. Find opportunities to make sure you're getting outside and to get out in nature and get out in places where it's green and abundant in life and things like that. You want to make sure you're getting outside to improve your air quality. Open a window. You may not be able to get outside, but you can let the outside in through a window or door. Make sure you're changing your air filter regularly. So air conditioners, a lot of us use air conditioners, heaters. Make sure those filters are clean. Check them. Check them every month. Make sure that they're not just getting clogged with a bunch of pollutants and dust. Exercise. We talked about it earlier. One of the best ways to make sure you're getting deep breathing is by exerting yourself. Your body will automatically increase the amount of oxygen. It increases that oxygen demand. And talked about deep breathing. Find times. One of the best times. You have to eat. If you're having a hard time remembering when to have deep breathing, you may not be thinking about it all the time. Try to do it when you eat. Before you eat, I like to pray before I eat. But before this might help too. Before you eat, just sit down, and before you take that first bite, just do one cycle of deep breathing. Inhale for 5, exhale for 5, or inhale for 5, hold for 5, and then exhale for 7. And you do that just to kind of calm yourself down, and then it kind of calms you down, calms your senses down. You're not as ramped up, and you'll probably eat a little bit slower and enjoy the food better as well. So, and if you eat 3 times a day, there's 3 times a day you can be doing the deep breathing, at least those 3 times. And then houseplants, we talked about those houseplants. You can go back and look at those 3 houseplants we talked about, but there's plenty of others as well. It doesn't have to just be those 3. And I want to end with this, and maybe one last kind of bonus topic is we talk a lot about breathing in clean air and improving the quality of your air. But it makes what's the whole point of making sure the quality of our air is clean if we're inhaling things on a regular basis that are detrimental to our lungs and to our immune system? I think of, vaping is becoming very popular, cigarette smoking, marijuana, these things, these pollutants that we're inhaling. Let's take just a moment to talk about this a little bit. The title of the topic is, let's get some fresh air. I don't know how many times I've heard someone say, I need to step outside and get a breath of fresh air, get some fresh air. That usually is code for the opposite. I need to step outside and destroy my lungs or inhale a bunch of toxins into my lungs. They're not getting fresh air, they're getting polluted air. And so smoking, I'll move myself up here and make sure I'm not blocking your guys' view. So smoking, a few facts. We all know that smoking is a problem. It's been around for years. Nicotine is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. Despite all our efforts to educate the populations about the dangers of smoking, still 1 billion people in this world are active smokers. 500,000 deaths a year in our country. If you look at, that's twice the amount of people that have died from COVID. A preventable disease, smoking. 500,000 people died each year from smoking-related illnesses. If you smoke, your chances of dying from a heart attack doubles. Think about that. Your chances of dying of a heart attack doubles just by that one thing. But if the converse is true, if you quit smoking, you can decrease your chance of dying from a heart attack in half. So take that to heart. Marijuana, it kind of gets treated with kid gloves, but we're finding out more and more the dangers of marijuana. It's becoming legalized in many places, but just because it's legal doesn't mean it's good for you. And so the smoke and the marijuana itself, we're finding out that it may actually do detriment to your intellectual ability. Long term, may harm your ability to think clearly, to think deeply. And we want to make sure that we're using the brains that God gave us to full capacity. And then also there's an increased risk of developing psychosis. And so the opposite, when you take deep breathing in, when you're doing those deep breathing exercises, you're trying to decrease your anxiety. You're trying to decrease the mental stress. Don't take deep breathing with marijuana, because it actually can do the opposite. It can actually put you in a place where you're not thinking clearly, to the point where you are mentally ill. If you're having any issues and you want to quit and you need resources, if you can't think of anything at the time, 1-800-QUIT NOW. Resources are available to help you to kick these horrible addictions. We've all seen these before, the smoking lung versus the non-smoking lung. After years of smoking, I know I've heard people say, "Doc, I can't quit smoking. I've been smoking since I was 15. And I'm like, well, you're 50 years old now. Don't you think you've smoked for long enough? Look at the damage you've done to yourself. If they could only see what they're doing on the inside. These lungs, the capacity, they're dying. Your lungs are a filter for the air. It's doing its job. It's doing its best to try to save you from basically a slow suicide. Do your lungs a favor and quit smoking. So if you were to quit smoking, and I just wanted to go over some of the benefits. I know you can do it. Think about this new you. Think about your immune system. Quitting heals the lungs. One of the beautiful things about the human body is that when we stop doing things that are damaging and detrimental to our health, it actually starts to heal. And so 20 minutes after your last cigarette, your heart rate and your blood pressure start to normalize. 12 hours, your carbon monoxide levels return to normal. After 48 hours of not smoking, your taste and your smell start to improve. After 2 weeks after your last cigarette, your lung function starts to improve. It starts to heal. After a month, coughing, shortness of breath, people start to realize, man, I'm not coughing as much. I'm actually able to take a deep breath in without hacking my lungs out. After a year, your ability to be able to do hard exercise improves. 3 years, your risk of a heart attack drops to the level of a non-smoker. We talked about how you double your risk of dying from a heart attack. If you stop smoking, 3 years goes by, your lungs have healed to the point where it's actually the level of a non-smoker when it comes to heart disease. And then in 5 years, you cut your risk of dying from lung cancer in half. So I just want to really just make a plea, for those of you that may be struggling with cigarette addiction or marijuana or vaping or any of these things where you're inhaling all these pollutants, really think about, do I really want to do this to my lungs? I'm wanting to build my immune system. There's people that depend on me, and I just want to live the best me possible. And so consider quitting. It may be one of the best decisions you ever make. And some studies actually show that the younger you are when you quit smoking, the higher the chance that you may have complete recovery of lung function. It may, you get to the point where, you were to take the lungs of a non-smoker and the lungs of somebody that was young when they quit, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, at the end of the day. So definitely quit smoking. One more breathing exercise and we'll end here. I just want to end on a peaceful note. Just like, the rainbow is a promise of new life. If you look in the scriptures, the ancient scriptures, my prayer for you is that as you embark on this journey of wanting to jumpstart your immunity, that you too would find new life. And so I'm going to lead you 3 more cycles of breathing. Okay, here we go. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Last time. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you for your attention. Have a great day and breathe well.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Shives. So good to have you here this evening. I've learned quite a bit, actually. Go ahead and unmute. Can you unmute? Got it? Okay, now can you hear me? All right.
I hear you well.
All right, so good to see you here. Sorry about that. I had to unmute my little mic there. So I've actually learned quite a bit about our atmosphere. I find it quite amazing how our planet is just in the perfect position. If we were one planet over or one planet the other way, we wouldn't have the atmosphere that we need to breathe, which I find absolutely amazing. And I thank you so much for that reminder of that God put our planet right where it needed to be, protected by the other planets, so that we have the right atmosphere. We're not going to burn up because of where we are in relation to the sun. So I do find that quite amazing. I do thank you for that reminder. Is there any questions out there? If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to type your questions, comments into the comments section there, either on Facebook or on YouTube. Once again, you can just go right down there in the comments section. Feel free to do any comments or questions. The other thing that I thought was quite interesting was how much we really need that fresh air. And that's really good for our bodies and really good for our immune system. Can you tell me, so when you breathe in that fresh air, how does that work with our immune system? How does that play a part into how that jumpstarts or revitalizes our immune system?
Sure. Thanks again for this opportunity to be able to share. I want to just be completely honest. I've never given an official talk on air. I've talked to a lot of my patients about air, and this just gave me the opportunity to be able to put all my thoughts together in one place. But as I think about the immune system, 2 things come to mind right away. One is that the immune system needs all the support it can get when it's fighting an infection. And just like when you're cleaning out a house, or there's going to be a lot of garbage, a lot of trash, and you need to get that excess exhaust out of your system, so that way there's room for healing properties to come into your body. So that's number one, is that it provides a very fast and rapid way to get rid of toxins out of your body as your body is fighting an infection. And number 2 is that when your body is working overdrive, it's almost like running a marathon sometimes, the amount of stress that's put on the body when it's fighting a very severe infection, like, COVID's on everybody's mind right now.
Right.
And when you breathe clean air, it helps to provide the necessary ingredients for your cells to be able to your white blood cells, your immune cells, to be able to work at 100% function to fight this battle that's raging inside of you. So one is that it provides a way of cleaning out the body. Number two, it provides the necessary substrates, the energy. Oxygen is critical in our cell function to be able to fight off these diseases. And so you want your body to be performing. Now, air in and of itself is nice, but it's air in concert with all the other principles we're talking about this week that makes the big difference.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we're breathing in air that might have toxins, like let's say you smoke, or maybe you are in an environment, say you're in a plant or something that produces a lot of toxins, with our immune system, is it good to get out? Well, first of all, if you're smoking, that would probably be, I'm guessing, would be a good idea to maybe stop smoking. That would probably better for your immune system. But if you have a place where you're in an environment with toxins, would it be a good idea to try to get out into the fresh air even more often than maybe if you weren't in that area?
Yeah, I think, Seth, you hit the nail on the head when it comes to that question, because a common question I get, or a common statement I hear, I work in the emergency department, and children under the age of 12, their immune systems they're just developing. And it's been documented. It's been proven that kids that are exposed to parents who smoke or family members that smoke or have they have a higher risk of developing ear infections, pneumonia. And one of the first questions I ask these parents, if I see a 3-month-old or a 4-month-old and come in with multiple ear infections, or multiple lung infections, I'll ask them, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, it just runs in the family." I was like, "Well, what else is done in the family that's often?" And usually it's smoking. And then I'll hear them say, "Well, I always smoke outside. I don't smoke inside." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's great that you smoke outside, but do you stay out there for like 4 hours? Because the smoke in your lungs are a filter, and it takes time to get all that stuff out of the atmosphere." Yeah. So if you're just going outside and smoking and waiting a few minutes and coming back in, well, you're just blowing all that carbon monoxide and all that back into the inside of the house, and you're holding your little baby and you're just blowing all that CO and CO2 back into that little child, and you're setting them up, and you can just see the light bulb go off. Like, you're right. I never even thought about that. I just thought, I'm not smoking in front of them. But so it's so important. We don't realize the decisions we make don't just affect ourselves, but especially for a parent.
Right.
It's thinking about, working in a plant. There's some, and I don't want to, I do my best to not make people feel guilty about, things they can't control. Like, you work in a place where, you may work at a car plant or like an industrial plant, and, those life on this planet is a balance. Obviously we need energy and we need, cars, and we need things like that. But what can we do to maximize the good and minimize the bad? And so, yeah, absolutely. Finding ways to get outside on a regular basis helps. Just like, your lungs, you don't have to live in a bubble. Your lungs are made, our immune system's made to be a defense. And so it needs some exercise, it needs to be able to be exposed,
Right.
Like, I've got 2 little kids, and, sometimes food drops on the floor. I'm not going to, oh, no. Sometimes, like, it's going to need it. You need to expose your immune system to some of those. It's just daily inundation of toxic things without, the breaks. There needs to be more exposure to good air than bad air, and try to limit it as much as possible. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. It does. And so my understanding is that when you're breathing in fresh air, it oxygenates your blood, which then helps carry your white blood cells to your organs that help heal the system. Is that kind of, I'm not medical, but I'm just...
No, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So there's 2 types of cells in the body, kind of general when it comes to blood cells. There's red blood cells, and the red blood cells carry the oxygen and other nutrients. And the white blood cells are kind of like the police. They're the defense system. They're going around looking for things that shouldn't be there and destroying bacteria and viruses or cells that have been taken over by viruses. So yeah, in every single cell, including white blood cells, they need oxygen to perform, to carry on the chemical processes, to be able to do their job. But yeah, every breath we take makes a huge difference.
And that reminds me of a song, but I'm not going to sing it.
Sorry about that.
Every breath I take, yeah. Anyhow, one other thing actually I found fascinating was when you talked about the plants. I had no idea that that plants could give us so much oxygen, and especially ones that we use for the aloe vera plant. I had no idea that the aloe vera plant would actually do all that, because I've always been taught, it's good for burns and good for skin stuff. I had no idea, and so now I'm actually glad I have the aloe vera plant at home, because it even helps with the oxygen, which I found fascinating. Looks like we do have some questions here, comments and
Hey,
questions.
Seth, real quick, I just want to add one more thing since you
Sure.
talked about the houseplant. I forgot to mention it in my talk.
Yeah.
So it's recommended it was specifically talking about the Areca palm, that for every 100 square feet of space that you're wanting to improve the quality of air, to ventilate the air, to clean the air, you want one house plant. So if you've got a 2,000 square foot house, you do the math, it comes out to 20 house plants spread out through the home.
Wow.
And I really wanted to hone in. I don't know if I did it in the talk, but that probably the most important place that you should have the cleanest air is where you sleep, because that's the one room that we spend the most amount of time, and we're not taking in deep breathing. So we're really susceptible. So if you can crack the windows, that fresh air is coming in, or make sure you got, like we said, a nice good aloe vera plant or something like that in there.
Something like that, yeah. One of the things, I was actually in the hospital for about 7 weeks back in July. And when I was in the hospital, one of my disappointments was the fact I couldn't open a window. I had no fresh air. But I actually, my parents and some other people had sent me some wonderful plants, as a get well type of thing. And so now I'm actually glad that I had those in my room, because those helped provide some of the oxygen that was well needed. My understanding is, if I'm not mistaken, is when you're sick, you really need that fresh air. I think that's what I was gathering from some of your talk, that it's good to have that air. So I was actually really disappointed.
If you have to visit somebody in a hospital, don't bring them chocolates and candy. Bring them plants. That's the point.
Yeah, that was perfect. It was actually, and not only that, it was a huge blessing because it uplifted my spirits as well, because I realized someone cared about me and had given me that plant. And so I also actually really enjoyed having the plants, especially the ones that had the flowers and stuff. So when I was in the hospital, it was something nice to look at, something that I could kind of take care of while I was in the hospital. So that was really excellent. Looks like we do have some questions here and comments from the audience. Looks like Brenda says, "Thank you, Dr. Shives, for all the helpful information and for including the breathing exercise. I also found that really awesome, the breathing exercise. I'm going to have to start trying that myself." Looks like we also have from Frank, breathing exercise. How many times a day? Routine? Should it be something routine?
Yeah, that's a great, and that's why, I had mentioned the exercise. I try to run, and we just, we just started the new year. For those of you that may be watching this later, this is in January. And so I was challenged by a friend of mine to try to run 1 mile every day for the first, or actually for every day in 2021. And I tell you what, nothing makes you breathe deeper than going out for a run or a jog or a brisk walk. And so if you're doing that every day, you're getting plenty of deep breathing compared to just doing the breathing exercises a few times a day.
Right.
And so if you are not, or you can't, I think as often as you think about it, you can't overdo deep breathing. And so I think, set an alarm, like, every 15 minutes, every hour, whatever, just have a little reminder that says, take a break. It takes just, a couple of minutes. I had mentioned, like, I like to say a blessing before I pray, when I eat. If you eat 3 times a day, just try to find little reminders. And so I think the more times you do it, the more relaxed you are, and the better the air, that comes in. And then what you'll find out is that you'll just start to naturally take deeper breaths and slower breaths as you exhale. So yeah, the more the better.
Awesome. Looks like Bonnie wrote in, how many hours of outside time is good for a 3-month-old to a 1-year-old?
Man, that's a great question. And so I think it really depends on what part of the world you live and what the weather is outside. But I'm a Christian, and I take a lot of principles from the Bible as well. And if you look at the original home of the Adam and Eve in a garden, they were outside 24/7. And so I think the more the better. Obviously you want to make sure that you're I think there's been other talks about sunlight and getting fresh air outside, and I think every single talk that you're going to hear this week is really just, each of these things are done better outdoors. And so I would put no limit on restrictions. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately for the season you're in. But I would say, hours as much as possible. Get outside. And if you can't be outside like that, I mean, bring the outside in. Make sure you have good ventilation. Make sure air is coming in through your home. Kind of the benefit of living in an older house is that some of the windows have they're not as sealed, and so air kind of gets in naturally. But especially if you live in one of these newer homes with the insulated windows and the tight seals, you got to make sure that you're doing your best to get that air outside.
Yeah, I actually currently live in an older house. My parents have lived there for now, I would say about 45 years they've lived there themselves. So it's definitely, and my grandpa owned it before that, and someone owned it before that. So it has plenty of ways to get air in and other things. But yes, definitely plenty of ways to get air in the house that I'm currently living in. But let's see, we also have another one from Bonnie. It says, can there be effects on an infant staying in a room all day?
Yeah. Yeah. So being in one room, especially if it's not well ventilated, I mean, you're missing out on that sunshine. You're missing out on that clean air. So I would have to say yes. And, with all these, depending on what part of the country you live in, or depending on what part of the world you live in, there's some places that are on lockdown because of, COVID restrictions and things like that.
Right.
I mean, you gotta be just very careful about finding ways to get that, that outside air in. And so I can't, there's probably a few reasons why someone would want to keep their 3-month-old in one room the whole time, but I can't think of too many. And so, whatever you can do, I used to, when my daughters were 3 months old, I used to take them in a stroller and we go walking outside all the time, and then getting them outside, getting them outdoors, I think is important. But yes, so my wife wanted me to make sure I'd mention, a lot of the artificial things that we have in our house. I've got some furniture behind me. There's plastics. These things, as the sun hits them, as different air particles hit them, they emit things slowly and insidiously into your air. Like if you're, for instance, a car that's sitting out in the hot. I live in Mississippi a lot of the year, and it gets really hot in the summer. And my car is sitting outside in a parking lot while I'm at work, and I come outside, and you can tell when you open that door, you can just, it's just the air just has a kind of a smell to it. Roll those windows down, open the doors, get the ventilation blowing there. The last thing you want to do is just, open that tightly sealed box and then get yourself in it and close it right back up. And then you provide the filtration for all the, the formaldehydes and things that are in the air. Open the windows down, dry for the first couple of minutes, get that clean air out. The same principle applies in your car as well.
Awesome. Very awesome. Very great information. Is there any other questions that someone has? I think you said your wife might have something.
Oh, that was the question she wanted to make sure.
That was the question. Okay, awesome. So we got that covered. Awesome. Is there any other questions that anyone has out here? If not, once again, you can always email us. So you can always email us at jsi.iyhp. That's jsi.iyhp@gmail.com. So once again, if you'd like to email us, we'll send that on to Dr. Shives. You can do that at jsi.iyhp@gmail.com. Looks like we don't have any more questions at this time. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Shives, for sharing that valuable information. Really appreciate your talk. Really learned a lot myself. And of course, we do invite you back again tomorrow. Tomorrow's topic is R&R. That's R&R, rest and relaxation. That is with Yvonne Afener. Yvonne Afener will be here tomorrow. And she is a registered nurse as well as a dietitian. So she will be here tomorrow giving our talk on rest and relaxation. So Thank you so very much. Yes, excellent presentation. I agree with that as well. Thank you, Dr. Shives, for being here. We'll see you all back tomorrow again for Rest and Relaxation, R&R Jumpstart. Thank you, God bless, and have a great night.